Hello, welcome back to We Met Behind the Castle. Today is July 28th, and we are going to be talking about all things Halloween Horror Nights 33. We are recording this a little bit in advance, so you might know a little bit more details for the 5th scare zone that was announced, but we have all 10 houses and all 5 scare zones, at least the titles, and a little bit of the descriptions for each of them. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about the event and what I think might be happening as far as an icon is concerned. And we'll get into anything else that we need to deep dive when it comes to this year's event. So let's get into it. If you haven't visited this website in the past, I highly recommend going to it. It's called Halloween Horror Nights Wiki. It's set up just like a Wikipedia page, but it's for HHN specifically, Florida and California. It will go through the history of different events. So if your favorite Halloween Horror Nights was Halloween Horror Nights 28, you can go back and revisit that by clicking on different links that take you to different videos of different scare zones and houses and all sorts of different things. So if you are a HHN fanatic, definitely head over and check this out. On that website, they've got information timelines when things were released to the public or released to social media accounts or given to media to release. So I find it very interesting because I like to use it as a frame of reference when I'm going back to see when are we going to start to see some of these updates for this year's event, next year's event, and years going on, because you can kind of guesstimate, right around when these things are going to be released based on when they've released them in the past. Typically, we've gotten all the houses, and I actually was looking at my Facebook memories today. We got announcements of all the houses by today, which is July 28th, because I'm recording this in advance, and you're watching this on July 31st, or whenever you're watching it after July 31st, but that's when it was released. And so we roughly get the same information around the same time, give or take a couple of days. So it is pretty interesting that Halloween Horror Nights sets it up that way, but I think it's hard not to, right? They get these plans and have specific times in which they want to release things to the public so they can start to set up props, set up houses, things start to leak, and so they kind of set this up. But I'm going to go through this year's information timeline so you get an idea as to when things were released to the public and when we started to find things out about Halloween Horror Nights 33. I'll go through this year's timeline for when information was released to the public about HHN 33. On April 4th, 2024, Universal Studios announced the dates for this year's event, which is going to be August 30th through November 3rd on select nights, Wednesday through Sunday. So if you're coming to the event and you are coming on a Monday or Tuesday, they won't have the event taking place because it only takes place Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights at Universal Studios Orlando. Islands of Adventure is still open and does not run any of the Halloween Horror Nights events. So just to be clear, if you're planning a Universal trip and you're looking to visit some parks at night, it might change based on the availability if you're not going to Halloween Horror Nights and you're going to Islands of Adventure. So I would definitely take advantage of Universal Studios during the day or on Monday and Tuesday when they are open at night. So definitely do that if you're coming to Universal. But we're going to go through the information timeline right now to tell you when things were announced as far as houses and different things like that. As I said, on April 4th, 2024, that's when the dates were released. And on that day as well, you got single tickets and single ticket prices alongside Unmasking the Horror Tour and RIP Tour tickets. Prices for them were released and dates as well. And you got a teaser video revealing a steel door and a static clip with an event slogan and promotional merchandise, which I believe is like that street grunge. If you didn't watch my last video that we went out to Halloween Horror Nights Universal Studios to catch up on the HHN updates over there at the park, then definitely head back and check that out because I think the original merchandise is the one with the main logo, which has like the skull with a mohawk and the little pumpkin in it, and it's like green, orange, and black. But I think that's when that was released, if I remember correctly. May 10th, 2024, social media influencers and media were sent a video of a woman who had snuck underground at Universal Orlando Resort and warns many viewers that she has heard something dangerous underneath. Before briefly being interrupted by someone on camera who's trying to capture them. The video would be released on HHN social medias that day as well. This was awesome because it is, again, I think like a point of view, or not a point of view, selfie, or like almost like she's vlogging her experience underground in Universal Studios Orlando, and she hears these noises, and they're not good noises, and she needs your help, and then it cuts out, we don't see her. It was a very creepy clip, and it was really exciting, because I remember media getting it and posting it from their email into Twitter, and it set the Xverse ablaze that day for Halloween Horror Nights. 3 days later, on May 13th, a video of a passerby in the park captures footage of weird screams and odd sounds coming out of a nearby sewer grate. And that sewer grate, I believe, was right outside Mummy, so people were wandering over there to see if the noises were actually there still after the promotional video. They weren't, but it was fun to see people kind of wander over by that grate. And then still, you're playing this in your mind that she's underground and she's found things that are going to become unearthed and are going to show up for Halloween Horror Nights. And then once we get the scare zones, we start to realize who all might be in charge of her ill fate. So that's a lot of fun. I love when they do these promotional videos. May 14th, 2024, Universal Orlando Resort and Universal Studios Hollywood release a promotional video called Fear Cannot Be Contained, which features a dark entity releasing out of a contained room. This one was freaky as well, and it was in quick succession to the last one. So we had a ton of hype videos and things out there, but we really didn't have many announcements, and people were wondering last year during HHN 32 if we were going to get announcements, because the year before that, HHN 31, they had announced Chucky during the event, towards the end of the event for HHN 32. So in HHN 32, people thought at the end of HHN 32, we were going to get an announcement for 33. We did not, and then as things started to get released, people were becoming very anxious for any kind of announcements. And I think what happened is Universal Studios usually is more delayed depending on, have they figured out which IPs are going to participate this year in this year's events? I think some of the things they start to put together have to be approved by different IPs, but they try to make sure everything is aligned and everything is to the IP's wanting and needs before they start to launch out some of these promotional items. So we had to wait once again. So a lot happened, a lot that we were waiting for. May 15, 2024, Universal announces a panel being held at Spooky Empire in the Keys Ballroom, hosted by members of the creative team for this year's event. So when this happened, it was after the videos, we were like, all right, so we're going to be getting announcements at Spooky Empire. And Spooky Empire was on May 17th, because it's in the timeline here. And I can remember that we were anticipating maybe they were going to bring one of the scare actors or multiple scare actors out. Maybe they were going to bring somebody from the movies out to talk about this. A lot of things were going on X then, because people were hyped that we were finally going to get something concrete when it came to this year's event, and they were not wrong. We did get an announcement and a preview of a house that was coming for HHN 33. May 17th, 2024. The HHN panel announces for the first time a house at one of the Spooky Empire panels. They announced Slaughter Cinema 2, which is the sequel to Slaughter Cinema from HHN 28 back in 2018. And they even previewed one of the scare actors for these houses. And I'll put in a picture here so that way you can see the kind of scare actors that will be inside of this house, Slaughter Cinema 2. But again, here we go, Slaughter Cinema 2. It is a sequel on Slaughter Cinema, which was a fan favorite back in 28. And I am really excited about this Halloween Horror Nights house, because I didn't get to experience Halloween Horror Nights 28 as a guest. My first one was Halloween Horror Nights 30. So it's easy to keep track of in my mind which ones I've been to, because I started on their anniversary on the 30th, and I've gone every year since. May 20th, 2024, Universal announced the second original haunted house, Goblin's Feast, that they were coming to the event. So within a span of about a week, we got a ton of information for Halloween Horror Nights. We had our second house announced, and we were very excited. I always thought that Goblin's Feast, if you look at this picture or poster for the house, it looks a lot like Wicked Growth back in Halloween Horror Nights 30. So I'm really interested to see what they do with Goblin's Feast. It'll have that same kind of magical allure that Wicked Growth had. And again, we'll get into what each of these houses are and details behind each of these houses, but I'm giving you just kind of a run through of the timeline for now. On May 21st, Halloween Horror Nights announced the third original haunted house, Major Sweets Candy Factory. On May 22nd, the fourth house was announced, and that was the Museum Deadly Exhibit. On May 23rd, 2024, they announced Monstrous, the Monsters of Latin America, was coming to Orlando as the next original haunted house. And then on May 24th, we got Universal announcing Triplets of Terror as the final original house. That made 6 original houses, which I've not been to an event yet that has had more original houses than have had IPs. Typically, it's a split right down the middle, 5 and 5. Remember, Universal Monsters is always going to be considered IP, even though it's got Universal's name written in it, but it exists as an own IP. So we get 6 original houses. I'm thrilled because I love the original houses. I often think the original houses are better than some of the IPs. May 30th, Universal announced the premium screen ticket, limited to a certain amount of people, would release on June 6th, ensuring guests an exclusive night with very little lines and an early entry, along with all you can eat, all you can drink, and some commemorative items for this year's event. And you get to sneak peek it on August 29th, the night before it opens to everybody on August 30th. On June 6th, Halloween Horror Nights premium screen ticket went live, and A Quiet Place was announced as the first IP haunted house for this year's event. A Quiet Place is both movies, 2 movies. It's not the third one, which is A Quiet Place. I think it's called First Day. Day 1 is what it's called. So we got that announcement on June 6th. On June 27th, they announced Ghostbusters Frozen Empire for Orlando. And then on July 11th, Universal announced and released the multi-pass tickets for the event, and Insidious the Further was announced as the third IP. So you got your Frequent Fear Plus, Frequent Fear, Rush of Fear. All those passes were released on July 11th. July 15th, we got our first Scare Zone, Torture Fair. And then on July 16th, we got Swamp of the Undead, our second Scare Zone. On July 24th, we got 2 of the Scare Zone announced in the same day, Duality of Fear and Demon Queens. And then on July 25th, Universal announced that Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines would be the final haunted house. Now, that being said, we did get an announcement as to what the 5th Scare Zone is going to be, but we don't have any details as to which houses are going to actually be considered for this Scare Zone coming up. And the Scare Zone is called Enter the Blumhouse. We all saw saw pictures of Blumhouse's logo, the big BH, and we saw it in San Francisco, so that's where it's going to be. They forgot to cover it, so pictures were going around X and flying around X before it was even announced. Then a tarp was thrown over it about 2 hours later because they realized, oh shoot, we have not released the information as far as this Scream Zone is concerned, so we need to go out, Scare Zone is concerned, so we need to go out and cover it, and they did. But that will be the 5th one because Universal then later confirmed that Blumhouse was coming to this year's event as a Scare Zone, but they left it at that as more details will start to surface here, I'm assuming, in the next week or 2. So those are the timeline of events. I hope that helps you understand maybe when in years coming when we're going to start to expect some of these. July really is the ramp up to Halloween Horror Nights, obviously, because it's in August. We don't really get much in August besides like food menus and like exclusive merchandise that they're going to have for each of the different IPs or for some of the other houses, original houses. But we don't really get a whole lot of announcements as far as August is concerned. So July really is where we kind of find out what's going to happen at this year or that year's HHN. So if you're looking for HHN updates, definitely head through the month of July to see what's been released, but also head over to this Halloween Horror Nights wiki. It's a ton of fun to read through, a lot of help, especially for myself who didn't get to experience, say, for instance, Slaughter Cinema, which we'll talk about, the original house. But again, one of the best websites. It gives you a breakdown of all the event dates, attractions, food, merch, rides that are open, food booths and bars, pictures of merch, places to go see that kind of stuff. It gives you the videos and images from the social teams. It's got anything and everything that has been released for Halloween Horror Nights right here in one place, so definitely check it out if you're an HHN fan. Okay, so we're gonna go in reverse order. We're gonna start with the show because I think it's more exciting to kind of build up into the houses. So for the show this year, you got Nightmare Fuel, Nocturnal Circus, Step Right Up to a Dark Circus, a twisted nightmare you're cursed to relive over and over. It's a sinister spectacle of pyro and aerialist. So if you've not seen the shows in past years, it has been Nightmare Fuel for quite some time. Some of the dancers come back, some of the cast and crew come back for this nighttime spectacular. It's not really a nighttime spectacular, but it is a night show. You can actually see it at the Fear Factor stage again between Harry Potter and like Diagon Alley area and Men in Black. It's back in that theater back there, and there's actually 2 houses that usually have entrances back in that area, or 3, depending on how many they use and how the new areas work with the new sprung tents, which will be really interesting to see too. I can't wait to see how they implement these new tents. They're not using the parade building anymore, which was always a good house, but I think tents are better, so I'm actually looking forward to the fact that they're adding 2 tents, and so we're getting an extra tent house, which I really find to be very interesting. Or actually, I guess 2. But again, I can't wait to see what that looks like. But yeah, Nightmare Fuel. I've not yet seen a Nightmare Fuel. People always say it's spectacular. It's got all sorts of cool pyro. They do acrobats and aerialists. Like they perform and do different handstands and balancing acts. And I think they've had like knives and daggers, and like it's a crazy show. So I think this one would be really cool. I think we're going to actually make it a point this year to go see Nightmare Fuel, and it would be really cool to see this one because it's Nocturnal Circus, and that sounds fun, right? The circus. So looking forward to the show. I definitely need to check it out. And again, it's probably one of the best shows, I think, as far as the parks are concerned, from what I've heard. So definitely check them out. For the 5 scare zones, we're going to start in the order in which they were released. So the first one is Torture Fair. Come one, come all to Renaissance Fair. Brave the gloriously gory medieval torture devices till you're put out of your misery. So I'm going to put up each of the posters, I guess they're called, to each of the scare zones in the houses. And something I want to point out here, if you look close enough, there's actually like a face in behind where you can see Torture Fair written here. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think is happening as far as an icon in the scare zones, because she or they have a huge part in each of the scare zones. And I don't think there are some that really mention them directly, but I think that they're becoming icons, and this is one that does not mention it directly in the first iteration of what was released from Halloween Horror Nights. And by that, I mean there was something else released for Torture Fair that was a little bit different as far as description, and that was on HHN's website. So let me read that one first before we move on to the next. So where this one went a little bit different, this Torture Fair was released again way back when we're talking about the timeline of events. Now, the website says this: Torture Fair. Come one, come all to Sinister's Renaissance Fair with the devious theme of medieval torture. Brave the gloriously gory homemade torture devices till you're put out of your misery. So now we've got Sinister, who is a name, but was also mentioned in some of the scare zones, released at a later date. So this was like a month in between, I believe, these two that happened. So pretty interesting that they went back and edited the description of Torture Fair, because once we start talking about Duality of Fear and Demon Queens, you'll actually recognize that name. Swamp of the Undead and Blumhouse don't have Sinister, or I'm assuming her sister, or a friend, or an enemy in Surreal. So I think we've got 2 icons, or we've got one icon that has kind of like this dual personality, and I'm interested. I'm very fascinated by what this means for this year's event. But again, that's Torture Fair. now we're going to get on to our next scare zone, and that is Swamp of the Undead. Swamp of the Undead was the second announced scare zone. In Backwaters, Louisiana, you're about to be swamped by zombies born from the bodies of trespassers killed and dumped in a nearby bog. So, I mean, I imagine this could have surreal or sinister in it, but we don't have any mention of their name or name drops in that one or that description. This scare zone was really the only scare zone when we went back on our last update that had pretty much a lot of their props out and ready to go. I think they're probably going to add in some more foliage and make it a little bit more deep and dynamic. But for the most part, I think the big pieces, or at least a lot of these big pieces that are going to be in that scare zone, have made their way into Central Park. So I believe that's where this one's going to be. It looks very swampy. It's got boats. It looks like zombie apocalypse kind of land, so or scare zone. So I think that's where it's going to be. But I'm interested about this one. I think this one's could be a lot of fun. There's a lot of lighting in this scare zone this year, and a lot of people think there's going to be a ton of fog to make it feel more like you're in the bayou and hanging out in Louisiana. And the fog is kind of acting as water and going to be around your feet quite a bit, so you're going to need more light. There were a lot more speakers and lighting trusses. So I'm interested. I'm quite interested to see what the ambiance is going to be in the scare zone. And it's actually one that I've got marked down on my list and we'll do a hype list, I believe, with Matt and gang. So we're not going to get into a hype list right now, but this is definitely one I'm keeping on my radar as far as a scare zone that could surprise, because there's something interesting going on there, and they haven't really done, I think, because of all the things that they've added as far as the scare zone is concerned. So I'm interested to see what this one's going to be like. Next is going to be the duality of fear. As soon as you enter Halloween Horror Nights, you must choose a path: the visceral horror of sinister or the unearthly terror of surreal. It's cool because sinister and surreal, when you put them together, the E's at the end are both threes. So for 33, I think that's a cool little theming item and piece. Duality of fear, it's going to be that front lot area. If you're going to be choosing a path when you enter Halloween Horror Nights, there's no other place that this could be. So right when you walk in and you head down, you actually would head down straight towards Minions, and then towards the right is kind of like that Hollywood Boulevard area. So up the straight street path, I believe it was probably going to be sinister or surreal, and then the other one is going to be sinister or surreal. One is visceral horror, and one is unearthly terror. So visceral horror make it look more demented, and then the unearthly terror look more alien, extraterrestrial. So I think you're going to get more demonic, and then you're going to get more extraterrestrial. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how these two play together. And is it the same character? Is it dual personality, Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing, or are these sisters? Are they enemies? What are they? So I think we're going to figure out that story, and they have been releasing information through their podcast, Universal's podcast, Discover Universal, does like short stories. So I think we're going to get a short story that describes, just like they did last year with Oddfellow, you're going to understand what sinister and surreal are to each other. So I'm interested to see, what is it? What are they? What do they symbolize? What do they mean? What do they look like? How did they become evil? What happened? So we'll keep you updated on those as we go along, because again, Universal Studios has been really great about telling the stories through podcasts, like a short story, kind of like an audio book. It's really great if you have not listened to any of them. But last year they did a fantastic job with Oddfellow. But again, I think this year you're getting that same kind of thing where sinister or surreal are having their hands in each of the different scare zones, obviously besides Blumhouse, because that's IP. But the different scare zones, at least 3 of them, are going to have sinister and surreal kind of playing their parts. And I'm interested to see also if Swamp of the Undead has that as well. So I don't know. Leave in the comments below, is that something that you'd be interested in? But I love this fact that they're giving fans the option or the opportunity to select their path as soon as you enter Halloween Horror Nights. Are you going to go with more sinister, or are you going to go with more surreal? Demon Queens was announced later on that evening. Get caught in an otherworldly hellscape ripped from the darkest corners of your mind, where 4 merciless queens loyal to surreal rules. So this one makes sense. So I guess, actually, the more I think about this, so if they've got a scare zone that is directly connected to surreal, I'm going to say that surreal is the right-hand side, right there where Oddfellow had been, where he was kind of doing like his voodoo magic or whatever he was doing. So I'm guessing that this one's going to be in Hollywood. So Demon Queens, Hollywood, I think it makes sense. And I think surreal will have that path that goes that way. So that's where I'm thinking this all makes sense. We already know Blumhouse is going to be in San Francisco, and we know that that Swamp of the Undead is going to be in Central Park because of the props that are out. So that just leaves Torture Fair, which will be in New York. Very interesting. There's a huge stage that's gone up in New York, and we'll have to go out to Universal sometime this weekend to go and check out more of the props that have been put out. I'm assuming there's going to be more put out this week as well, because we are really starting to gear up towards Team Member and Premium Scream Night. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the lay of the land. I think we pretty much have it sealed because of what they've announced so far with these scare zones. So really interested to see what Demon Queens is. There's 4 of them. So I'm assuming they're going to be scary. If you look at this poster, you can kind of see their outlines and their silhouettes hanging out here in the poster. So I really think this is going to be a great scare zone. I think this is going to be a fantastic year for scare zones. Probably one of the most interesting, because I thought last year's was going to be fantastic. I think it actually fell short for me. I'm interested to see how this all works out, because one, Blumhouse is going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a collection of different Blumhouse characters. But the rest of them, I love Renaissance. I love that idea. Swamp of the Undead, I'm all for swamp zombies. Love that. And then this duality of fear where you get to select your own destination, kind of like you did last year with Dueling Dragons in that house. So kudos to Universal. I think they're going to knock it out of the park this year. It sounds like they already have with some of these descriptions. Enter the Blumhouse. That's what it's going to be called. I love this. There is a huge structure over there. It's a big square. And a lot of people say that it's going to have walls on the different sides, or it's going to feel like you're entering into a house. So you're basically, I guess, kind of getting that, going through another house vibe without having to wait in line, and you're kind of walking through it as a scare zone. I love that idea. I love the idea that they're going to bring in a ton of Blumhouse people. I'm assuming Megan, Black Phone, I think Freaky in them, like ones they've done in the past, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm really excited about this because I think this one could be one of the best hodgepodge kind of scare zones that Universal's done. I think they did this, oh man, what was it called? Gosh, they did this my first year, I think it was. I forget something TV. If you know in the comments below, I think it was in Halloween Horror Nights 30, they actually had something similar to this. That was kind of like a hodgepodge of horror films. But I love this. I think this is a great idea, and I like that it's in the San Francisco area. Something to watch. In San Francisco, they had cleared out the Fast and Furious cars, and it looked like they were looking to expand the scare zone a little bit back there. That'd be interesting because that is a really tight scare zone. It usually ends up being one of my least favorite because of how congested it gets, and it gets so crowded it's hard to enjoy it. So I'm interested to see, are they trying to branch out to make this one much more doable for scare actors and people that are visiting that scare zone? And I think that's essentially what they're trying to bring it back into like that area where those cars were. So we'll see. That scare zone is still one that a lot of questions about, but the fact that it's going to be all these Blumhouse movies is going to be absolutely thrilling. Let's get to the part that everybody's been waiting for, and that is the houses that will appear at Halloween Horror Nights 33. The first one is, again, Slaughter Cinema 2. If you're dying for a B-movie horror marathon, head to the Cary Drive-In. Scream through scenes from creature features, grindhouse gore, spaghetti westerns, and more. So I actually brought up Slaughterhouse Cinema, the first one, to go over some of the movies, and these are all made-up movies, but they're kind of like nods to different horror films that have existed before. But essentially what you did, you went through a drive-in theater. You started in, I think, the candy bar. You have cars. The cars were sitting outside of the tent. Then you walked in. You're like in the concession area. And then you walk through, and before each of the like areas where you get scared, in each of the rooms, they had like a movie poster. You walk through and you get through these different movies. And they actually came up with some storylines for some of these movies. We're not going to go through all those because that would take forever. But here are some of the ones that were mentioned, or actually, here's the ones that were seen in Slaughter Cinema 1. The Foul Fist of Dr. Faustus, Sorority Sacrifice, Devil Dogs, Pumpkin Guts, Shitty's Kids, The Cult of the Beast Baby, Amazon Cannibals from Planet Hell, Barber Chop, Midnight Snack 2, The House Swarming, and Attack of the Swamp Yeti. So I'm sure you can imagine what most of those are. Like I can picture what most of those are. Sorority Sacrifice, I'm guessing that had something to do with the sorority house. Devil Dogs, I don't know, maybe biker gang, I have no idea. Pumpkin Guts, maybe Halloween, very spooky Pumpkin Guts. Shitty's Kids, The Cult of Beast Baby, Amazon Cannibals from Planet Hell. I'm gonna go back and watch this house because I'm very interested to see what the first one was like. Is it like movies? Do you need to see the first one before you see the second one? I feel like you do. So I'm gonna go watch this one, the POV. We'll go through the house, look at it, see what it looks like, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. So I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna watch the first one because I know they have POV on it, and then I'll be back to talk a little bit about this second house that's coming. Oh, what is that thing? Oh my gosh. All right, so that was Attractions Magazine. They did a POV, and I was just kind of watching it. And I'll show you a little bit of the reaction. I just love watching those, the POVs. That's a goal of mine one day, is to be able to film some of those on a media night. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I'm kind of freaked out because I think I'd have to wear a GoPro or have at least one of the ones that make it not so shaky, because I get scared in houses. I am very jumpy, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. So it looks like, again, some like not great horror films, weird plotline kind of stuff, but scary because it's HHN. So I'm looking forward to this. I love Scary Ohio, Gary, Ohio. I love the idea that they created this fictional town where all things go wrong in the horror films at HHN. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I think this will be a really great house. I love the movie posters. That one where the guy in the original Slaughterhouse, where he brought down the poster, that scared me even watching the video. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Slaughter Cinema 2, again, I think it's going to have very similar things. We might even get some sequels, right? We might even get some of those sequels. Maybe Dr. Faustus has a sequel that he's going to put us through. But I love that they're bringing a second one, and I think we're going to get some new, fresh movies. But I like this idea of putting a bunch of like B films, right? B movie horror marathon, where you're walking through the movies and getting scared because of the horror films. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this house. Goblin's Feast. Visit a goblin village where hordes of bloodthirsty goblins, orcs, hobgoblins, and witches would love to have you for dinner. This one reminds me so much of Wicked Growth because of the way it's described, because if you look at this poster, it looks very similar to Wicked Growth over here. I think they've got similar characteristics, and I think the description where you're going through like a feast, there was a lot of like being in a house feast aspects of Wicked Growth. So that's where the Pumpkin King was, or Pumpkin King, Pumpkin Lord. Pumpkin King is Jack Skellington, isn't it? Wrong company. But yeah, I think this one is going to be one that surprises a lot of people. I think the goblins are going to be freaky enough. I think this is going to be aesthetically pleasing. So like, you know, in years past, you've had houses that are not only scary, but had that look, right? I think Dead Man's Pier, Winter's Wake, which was 31, was one of my favorite. Wicked Growth, 30, Dead Man's Pier, 31, and then last year, I think Blood Moon was probably my favorite aesthetically. I think the look of it. I think this one has that ability. I think this one is going to be the one. This or Monstrous, I would guess, are going to be the ones that are just aesthetically pleasing, good looking, really well themed. So I'm really looking forward to Goblin's Feast. I know a lot of people were very hesitant, and the hype list that I've seen on Twitter or X did not have this one as high up there, but this one's high on my list, I think, and I'm not going to try to spoil my hype list because we're going to do a different video on that, but yeah, I think this one's going to be up there. Speaking of Discover Universal, which is the podcast that Universal does that tells short stories, they actually have Major Sweet's Candy Factory story up, so definitely check it out if you haven't yet. And Major Sweet's Candy Factory, you've been invited to chaperone a field trip to a candy factory, but this sweet tour is about to turn sour when free samples transform the kids into candy-coated killers wielding sharpened candies. Interesting. We've had a scare zone like this. This was in HHN 31, which was Major Sweets. I loved the decor. I loved the kids costumes. I love the kids' costume. Well, they weren't kids; they were adults. But I love the costumes. I thought this was themed very well. I think the scent, like the smells in here, could be pretty interesting. I think they could do some things with that. I'm hesitant with this one because the location it's rumored to be in is the one where Chucky was, Freaky and Black Phone. Freaky and Black Phone were good houses. Chucky, not so much. That house, for me, it's very difficult because one, it's split. Two, I don't know, like it has a weird flow to it. Like you kind of turn in weird ways, and like you have different areas where it's empty, and I don't know, like it's just never done it for me. Black Phone was pretty freaky though, no pun intended. But again, I think I'm interested to see this one because I actually liked the Scare Zone a lot. I just don't know if this one will be as scary because it's typically not the scary one in that area. So what are your thoughts on Major Sweets returning to Halloween Horror Nights? The Museum Deadly Exhibit. This is one that I was really thrilled about when it was released because it's like they can do a lot with this to make it very scary. Thinking about museum and thinking about things you think are fake and then jumping at you, that sounds horrifying. The Museum Deadly Exhibit. You decide to visit the new folklore, not Taylor Swift, folklore museum exhibit, The Rotting Stone, when an evil escapes from within, destroying everything in its path. Night at the Museum gone wrong. I guess it would be called Nightmare at the Museum. But yeah, this one, I'm really looking forward to this one. Being in a tent, being terrified of things that I don't know if they're real or not. Kind of like when you have the hooded characters from or like the Frozen characters from like Blinding Lights and the Weekend House, and then you also had Blood Moon when they're sitting in the pews. That was terrifying. I think you could do a lot with that with the museum because you can't tell what's real and what if they're standing still. This one could be pretty terrifying. So I'm really interested to see what they do with this house. Okay, so another house that's coming to this year's event, and I'm actually not going to watch the video of this one because this one actually existed in the California HHN, so I'm not going to watch the video of this one because I think it's supposed to be the same. So yeah, bear with me. The Monsters of Latin America, Ten Cuidado. With La Muerte as your guide, you'll be asking for mercy from these three terrifying monsters: the blood-sucking Taya Halapachi, owl-faced from La Lechuza, and bone-ripping El Silbón. So, I don't know who they are. I know that some of those characters have some lore in Latin America, and I know people that are from Latin American countries. They know some of these characters or have heard of these characters, so that is really awesome that they are including these characters for a community that will frequent Halloween Horror Nights, because we do have a lot of the Latin cultures here in Orlando. I think this is awesome that they're doing this. I can't wait to see what this is like, because a Latin inspired house, I'm thinking of the smells, I'm thinking of the story, the rich culture, like just everything about it. I think the monsters there are scarier too, I believe. They're very like monstrous looking, like they look like actual monsters. Ours are more like ghostly or phantom or Dracula, vampire kind of stuff. They really heavily focus on monsters that look like they could actually exist in the real world. So this one I think will be pretty terrifying. I'm really excited to see what Monstrous has in store for us. Triplets of Terror. This is the one that a lot of people picked on as maybe being an IP for The Strangers, and it fell through. Either way, I think it's going to be a similar kind of vibe. So if you've seen The Strangers or the new one that's come out, it is three serial killers that just kill for no reason. Apparently, that's what we figured out so far. They've got no reason to do so. They just kill. You're invited to the Barmy triplets birthday bash, but beware. They celebrate by recreating their family's murders. Prepare for a gory gathering. I love this idea. So we're going through this family's home, the Barmy triplets birthday bash, or wherever it might be taking place, and we're just seeing people get slaughtered left and right. Serial killer kind of stuff. Like, this could be really fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that story entails. And again, that'll be on Discovery Universal as well. So we'll get some background as to who the Barmy twins are and why they're killing, or why their parents were killed, and why they seem to be seeking some kind of revenge. Quiet Place was announced as the first IP. Silence your screams if you want to survive this terrifying post-apocalyptic world based on the films A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2. Like the Abbott family, you must keep quiet, and as you travel to the farmhouse, to the woods, to the foundry, as soon as you make a sound, monstrous creatures can hear you, and the slightest noises will hunt you down and silence you for good. So, I actually listened to one of the creative directors talk about this with the Discovery Universal podcast people, and it was fascinating to listen to. So if you have time, this is the one I really hope that you go and listen to, because working with the people of The Quiet Place, the directors, the creative team, working with them and Universal and trying to get it right, and what they tell you in this, and they will spoil a little bit of the house for you, so just be aware of that as well. But the things that they're putting in this house, and I'm not going to spoil it for you here, because in case you don't want to listen to it, but the things that they've put in this house are going to be amazing. The implementation of sound or no sound is going to be fascinating, because that's not HHN's gig usually. It's loud, it's in your face. Whereas this house, I think there's going to be some breaks from that, and that'll be fascinating to me. Like, it honestly, it's kind of scary, because like when you're walking through it, people behind you are freaking out, but like it's the speakers and the sounds and the lights and the stuff like that that really make a house scary. Whereas this one, they seem to be leaning the opposite direction of letting you kind of experience the scares, and not any of the like artificial sound. Like, yeah, they'll have artificial sound, but like it sounds like they're not going to have as much noise. So this one, I'm fascinated, and they actually, this is not spoiling it, the director actually, or the creative director, said that they are going to try something with this house they've never tried before with Halloween Horror Nights, and they said it could work out tremendously where they try some of this stuff going forward, or it could fail and not be a good house. So he's interested to see how fans will react, or people that visit will react to this. But for the other parts, like the actual visuals of this house, you're going to be blown away, I think, because of the things that they said exist in here. So I'm looking forward to A Quiet Place. I think out of the IPs, this is the one. Well, no, I take that back. Universal Monsters is always number one on my list as far as hype list, just kind of a spoiler alert. But as far as IPs are concerned, but Quiet Place is going to run second, I think, right behind Universal Monsters. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. In this bone-chilling haunted house inspired by the film Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the Ghostbusters must team up to save the world from a second ice age. A new specter, Garaka, has escaped from an ancient artifact. He'll stop you cold with a whole army of ghosts. Try not to freeze in fear as you dodge spears of ice, and he freezes people solid before your eyes. I think this one visually is going to look awesome. Houses like this that have some comedic relief in it aren't always the scariest, but I think visually they always do well for me. The one that I kind of compare this to, I guess, is former Ghostbusters houses that I've seen video of. I guess Stranger Things-ish. Like, Stranger Things last time was pretty freaky, but Stranger Things before I'd heard was not as scary. But Beetlejuice, that's the one that I was trying to get to, where I think this could be kind of similar. This one has a little bit of a scarier aspect to me because ghosts freak me out. And I think visually it'll look good, right? I gotta watch the movies. I have not seen, this is crazy, I've not seen any of the Ghostbusters movies. And fun fact, you can't stream them. You have to buy them or rent them online. You can't stream them on Peacock. HBO doesn't have them. Like, you gotta buy them. So I might be purchasing all the Ghostbusters movies, and I've heard the first two are really good. And then people say that, but I'm easily entertained, so I probably will like this movie. And I love Paul Rudd, so what's not to like? But I'm interested. How is this going to work as a house, and what does it look like? I'm assuming it's not going to be as scary, but I'm still interested to see what Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is like this year. Insidious the Further. This one I think has like kind of Exorcist vibes where it could be really freaky. And this is going to be all of the movies. So every single Insidious movie is fair game for this house. Don't get trapped in the Further as terrifying demons try to ensnare you. The red-faced demon will lure you into his lair behind the red door so he can possess your living body, and Keyface will unlock your fears with his key-tipped fingers to keep your soul trapped in the Further forever. Demonic, demon possession. Let's go. Let's do it. Exorcist was terrifying. I'm assuming this one's going to be terrifying as well. I have not seen any of the Insidious movies, and I gotta watch those by myself because Ashley won't watch them. She might do the house, but she's freaked out by like demonic possession and demons, and so what Red Face is, I think, would freak her out. But I've never seen Insidious. I've heard it's great, so I'm excited to see them, and I'm really excited about this house because I think, again, it could be very similar to Exorcist, which Exorcist was one of the top houses last year and it was terrifying. So looking forward to seeing what they do with Insidious in this franchise. Last and certainly not least, Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. Let's do it for the girlies. It is an all-girl casted house. There might be males in there, but I'm hoping they're ripping them apart. We deserve it. But join Saskia Van Helsing and the Bride of Frankenstein as they face off against Dracula's daughters and her monstrous alliance. This house, and I'll put in some pictures here. This house, I think, with these three characters, right, and I guess her alliances, Dracula's daughters' alliances. I think that this could be number one at the end of the year when people are looking back. Universal Monsters houses are always terrifying. They get the best scares. They implement like the back-to-back-to-back scares quite a bit with Universal Monsters, and it's always like a battle, and it's loud. It's high energy. There's a lot of screaming. There's a lot of yelling. There's a lot of people behind me yelling. I'm screaming. Andrew's screaming. He's crying. I think this house, again, will knock it out of the park. I love the idea that they've got an original character in Saskia Van Helsing, and the Bride of Frankenstein, one of my favorites. I think her house back in the, I think it was COVID year, right? Her house was great, and then it returned. I believe, did it return the 30th, or was that Icons? I think it was Icons. But I've seen the Bride of Frankenstein's house, and I love her. I think she's one of the best characters, one of the freakiest characters. She's always up to something, battling Frankenstein and kind of that, you know, trying to balance her love for Frankenstein's monster and all that kind of stuff. I think this house could be phenomenal. Dracula is always great, and Dracula's daughter, get introduced to her as well. So this one I'm totally game for. I hope it knocks it out of the park. It's fantastic. I think the representation here, you got what sounds like female icons. We're really leaning heavily into the female power here, and I love it, love it, love it. I think it's a great year to really lean into this because we do need more representation. I love that Monstrous is here. I love that this is here. You've got the sign language community with A Quiet Place that they said they're going to try to implement as best they can there. I mean, it really is. It's an inclusive year. It's one of the best Scarzone lineups on paper that I've seen in a while. I thought Oddfellows was going to be last year, but it just didn't do it for me. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to Eternal Bloodlines. I think it's going to be a top house for me. I need to go back. You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to make a video coming up for this HHN because I just thought about this. I want to go back and maybe Matt will jump on with me and do this with me and rank like all the years that we have gone together. So starting from 30 up to 33, well 32 now, putting together a list of the houses and then kind of keep an ongoing ranking of houses for me, because I can do that, I feel. So I'm definitely going to do that. I'll make a video where we rank the houses from past years, but again, this lineup is going to crush it this year, I feel. I think this is, I say this every year, I think this is the year I'm most excited about. But truly, I think there could be a lot of special things. 6 original houses. I love original houses. They're always my favorite. And then you add in Eternal Bloodlines and A Quiet Place. I think they're going to be very unique and awesome. Insidious has that chance to be really terrifying as well. You know, I think Ghostbusters could be fun. I'm interested to see how that goes, though. That's the one I'm most hesitant on. But, I mean, this really does, it feels like a good lineup this year. What are your thoughts? Are you excited about the houses that have been announced? Are you excited about the Scarezones that have been announced? What about the show Nightmare Fuel? What is your go-to? What's the first thing you're jumping in line for? Night one, you gotta do it, gotta get it done. Maybe what's something that you don't want to do? Is there something that's freaking you out that you're like, no way in heck am I getting in line for that? Or maybe I'll do that at some other point, I'll get to it. So let me know in the comments below. What is your Scream Squad? What are you excited for? I'm excited to always go to these events with my friends. I love this event so much. Again, I always think that I say this, but it is the best event. Until something topples this is the best event, and I look forward to every single year. I absolutely am obsessed with this event. I will go to lengths to get to these events, and again, I can't wait to experience it with you all and experience it with Matt, Rachel, Ashley, Andrew, Darren, Kelsey, my whole Scream Squad, Jay, like whoever's going. I'm excited to go, and I can't wait to see you all there if you're going. Let us know in the comments below. Again, what are you looking forward to most? What is your hype list? Do you have a hype list? We're going to make a video separate from this that is going over our hype list and talking about the different scare zones and houses. And then we'll launch right into it. We'll be out at Universal Studios hopefully next weekend to update you on all things that are happening out at Universal. But thanks for watching this video. We hope to see you guys in the next video, and we hope to see you guys at the parks and Halloween Horror Nights.